Alright, another nightly session of content creation. I really love the way of the vibe. I love the way, I love the way, I love the way, and I also love the way that I am looking. How nice. How nice. Procreate for the kingdom come. Exactly. Alright, here to burn the boats and light a candle for each one as a remnant of the vehicle for safety. Exactly. Yeah. So the views are going healthy, wealthy, happy and free. Good friends, hard work and ingenuity. And nothing happens until everything happens. And that's the way that it is. And so with that, let's go forward on the content. Let's go forward on the content. It is easy. General strategy balance. How to let the process happen. Oh, here we are again. Teachings of life. It just automatically jumped to that. Shall I just read all of that once again? What is the purpose of life? Life itself has no purpose in the sense that it is not moving towards an outcome. It has a direction, either in expansion or in contraction, like in-breath and out-breath, or like the waves. So life itself has no purpose, but it follows certain laws. In this way, there are two dimensions of existing in the human. The identity as a collection of attributes about myself, who I am, what I am good at, bad at, past experience, things I like and don't like, and so on. It can be called the psychic dimension. And there is another dimension, the dimension of life. The purpose of the human life is to integrate the two dimensions, experiencing that I'm different than animals and plants, gifted with the ability to create a mental identity that can have a life of itself, in order to take our place in society, comprised of a large number of people, and being not different from animals and plants. Having a functioning mental identity that allows us to find our part in society among other humans, while simultaneously knowing and experiencing oneself as being life, not only having a life. The more we are in alignment with life, the easier life is. The more our life works out. The happier we are, the more at ease we feel. The more we're out of alignment, the harder life is. The less life seems to work out, the more unhappy we are. The more we feel this internal feeling of being stressed, being torn apart, or not belonging. This seminar then combines two major lines of teaching: how life works and how our mental functioning works. The aim is to learn to bridge these two. Life happens by itself, without force or resistance. Life carries our system through progress, aging, etc., by life without us doing anything. The same progress can be achieved in terms of the journey towards happiness. Conditioning that is not serving life is shed away by itself. It doesn't require additional effort from the outside. Life is only a game. Life is a play itself. People who are in deep suffering, either mentally, like in the Western world, or physically and mentally, like in many war-torn developing countries, don't see it that way. That is because in suffering we put importance of getting out of this state, because it has survival value. But life itself is not grim or serious, but we are. Lesson. We learn to take things lightly and not seriously. The universe is expanding and at some point it will collapse again. The earth was formed and it will vanish again. We are born and at some point we die again. At the end, even if we change the world profoundly, it would not matter much to the whole. Relatively, we can save a lot of lives of people, improve their living conditions and so on. But we have to see that this matters only relatively to us personally and to the person we help. But overall, it is only one giant play of expanding and collapsing energy. Bridging earnestness about your service to the world with lightheartedness and playfulness is part of the art of life. Seeing that it does matter, but after all, life itself is a game, a play of energy. And so oftentimes when people are depressed because they feel like life itself on the outside doesn't have a meaning, it's oftentimes just an externalization, in the same way as people who can't really take the responsibility to themselves, they blame other people. It's like it's always easier to preach to somebody else than to take your own advice. So in the same way, people who get depressed because life on the outside doesn't have a meaning, it oftentimes is an externalization of the feeling that their own life doesn't have any meaning. And so the fix to that is to give your life some meaning. And so part of that is to really decide what meaning are you going to give your life, and part of that is really uncovering that through following the sweet attraction of life. Learning to distinguish, to follow your emotions and really follow your heart. Because there's a difference between following what feels good and following what feels right. Alright, here, back again, 5 minutes. Right, so life itself is a game and play of energy. So life is a process that it is constantly shedding away layers of delusion. So in that way, life is guiding us into an inner healing process. So think of it like that. Whenever we are triggered on the outside by something that we believe we need to face, it is usually a process that leads us within to look at the things that we feel energetically attracted to on the outside, because the reason why there's a pull of energy towards that, whether it is a type of person or a concept of thought, there's something in there that is of value for us. And if we follow that sweet attraction of life, learning to distinguish that which feels good from what feels right, we can get to the place of actually having everything in our life integrated and learning how to follow that healing process which our intuition suggests for us, because the intuition is a suggestion after all. Okay, so life is neutral. Okay, so life is a process that is constantly shedding away of layers of delusion. They fall away and build up during the life like dark clouds forming and disappearing again. Life itself doesn't cling to any permanence. It is a process. Without trying to hold on something we would assess as positive, like a clear sky, or resisting and despising that we would assess as negative, like a dark sky. In this way, once we have found our passion and means of service, life is about walking the path of discovery of delusions and conditioning while simultaneously experiencing the absolute. So the lesson here is, in life, things are constantly on the move, changing, growing, and decaying. The form that we see life consisting constantly change. Nothing stays the way it is permanently. In our lives, we need to accept the uncertainty of constant change. One of life's laws is constant change. We are in alignment when we accept that and live in accordance to that law. When we resist change in trying to achieve something that stays like this forever, like a status quo of a relationship or a chain of life successes, we are out of alignment. This other extreme would be to force change when it is not time yet. Life is neutral. Everything just is. It is our evaluation from a limited point of view that things are happening to be good and bad. The thunderstorm that kills a tree is neutral in the same way as the grace of rain that stops the wildfire that would otherwise have killed millions of animals, big and small. Because everything that happens in life is serving some rebalancing purpose. It serves the stability and the balance of the whole life. How does this apply to our lives? Lesson: everything that happens is neutral as well. Only our evaluation thinks it is good and bad. Epictetus said, it's not the things, it's our perception of it that makes them good or bad. So we evaluate, we basically infer the value that it has for us. When sensation is being evaluated, then it becomes perception. That's because, and that's why perception differs among individuals. I perceive the same sensation differently that you may. And here's why it's important to have your mindset. And this is, in my opinion, why mindset is important, because mindset means that which your mind is set towards on one hand, so the direction of where the energy of your thoughts is being projected. For example, is the energy of your thought of like, what clothes, how do I make the money to go shopping on the weekend so I can buy the clothes that will hopefully get me late? Is that your train of thought? Or is the direction of thought really, how can I manifest the kingdom of heaven here on earth? Or how can I actually solve this so that we get the water desalination plant started? Or is it, how do I arrange it so that Jimmy gets picked up at 6 p.m. from the sun? It's like, what is the direction of thought? This is our mindset, in the sense of what is our mind set towards, what is our mind habitually set towards, and then also the magnitude of things. Because frankly, whether we think through our meal prep or whether we think through the master plan to change the world, both of that takes a similar kind of energy. Yeah. Everything that happens is neutral as well. Only our evaluation thinks it is good or bad. So from the big picture point of view, we can even see that. Mindset. So what is our mind set towards? And then also, what is the set of habitual default evaluations that are being applied? What is the set of default evaluations that is being applied to the sensation that we receive? That is being applied to sensation, meaning what's your habitual way to evaluate things, to give meaning to things? That's exactly why it is so important to have a positive mindset, because you see things that come your way. Some other people would evaluate that as negative, you evaluate them as positive. Even though there are negative elements into that, but since your mind is set towards finding the opportunity rather than the blame in what happens to you, you will. And so that will then over time compound in hormonal changes, that you spend less time thinking in negativity, and that you're generally more prone to finding solutions rather than blame or excuses. What the mind is set towards and what is the set of default evaluations, meanings you habitually give to the sensations that cross your senses. That cross your senses to the sensation. When the sensation is being evaluated, it becomes perception. Life consists of separate beings, like bees and flowers, or forms like mountains and rivers. Those are interconnected and depend upon each other. Without flowers, bees won't be able to gather the honey. Without the bees, many plants would not reproduce. The force that moves the continental plates and the force that makes the rivers flow might be different, but it comes down to this is just how life works. So how does that apply to our lives? We are separate. We have delineated bodies. So at the same time we are interconnected. We exchange warmth with the air through our skin. The waste products of plants, photosynthesis, is the key component that we breathe. The waste product of what we breathe is the key component to plants' photosynthesis. In that way, we exchange with each other. We exchange energy through emotions with others. And the force that makes your heart pump makes the heart of our enemies or children pump. So we are not only connected, the force that animates us is the same. In this sense, we are the same in essence and different in form. We are life. The same mysterious force or intelligence that organizes the cells when an embryo is formed pumps the blood through our veins. It is the same force that pumps the heart of a fish. We are not people that walk the earth. We came out of this earth. Evolution went from bacteria to humans, and it will beyond. Life grows from simple to complex. So in this sense, we are a continuation of this process of life called evolution. The iron in our blood is made up of the same particles than the iron in the stone. Our cells have the same structure and basic components than the ones of the blue whale. We consist roughly 70% of the stuff that the ocean consists of, water. In seeing that, we come to an understanding that we not have a life, we are life, an expression of life. So check for yourself. For many people, there's the experienced division of me and I have a body. Me and my body. So in seeing that, we come to realize that we are our bodies. The mind is part of the whole organism called human. It is a faulty assumption to view it in the way that the body somehow belongs to us. We are the body. And the mind is also part of us. But it's not like we are in the mind and we have this body. That means we are very much identified with this egoic entity and we're viewing the world from that. We've got to also retrain ourselves and have these experiences, especially through also engaging our body through sports and exercise, so that we know we feel alive and our body feels familiar to us, right? Alignment with life. Why doesn't life work out? Overall, because we are out of alignment. And why are we out of alignment? Because we exercise our inference mechanism and resist. In non-resistance, our life works out. People follow the voice of the head instead of the voice of the body. They work when the body needs to rest, and they rest and procrastinate when it would be time to work. We live in a very plan-based, should-do driven society. There's little place for spontaneity of the moment. Or we have beliefs that we must not rest because that would mean laziness. So the physical system gets out of alignment. When this happens, our system, like every other system, has means to get back into balance. Dis-ease, such as colds and flus, are oftentimes there just to grant the body rest that it needs. People who are unhappy, poor, and unhealthy have learned the lesson of taking time to work on their strategy, haven't learned the lesson of taking time to work on their strategy to live life. Trauma healing, rest, nutrition, and so on have not been made a priority to give thoughts to. One of many complex strategies is that they are consumed by tactics. The day seems to have no minutes left to do strategic planning because low-quality rest time, such as binge drinking or TV watching, is needed in high quantities to recover from the stresses of everyday life. There seems to be no energy left to even sit down and write out the confusing thoughts one experiences, and they lack a positive outlook to the future, that the future could hold more happiness than today. Our mental system has the capacity to interfere, to resist. Resistance builds tension. Tension release patterns release tension. Emotional outbursts are such release patterns. We manifest situations that recreate previously suppressed situations like stressful and traumatic events. Maybe my life doesn't work out because I don't know how the workings of life work. Maybe if I was aligned with how life works, my life would work out. Mindsets to integrate. False assumptions that are formed due to not questioning our common sense understanding. Nobody can make you feel a certain way. It is your evaluation of what happens or what others have done that causes your feeling of the situation. In the same way as you're not responsible for others' feelings, when you follow your intuition and act and express yourself, you will naturally offend others with your behavior and expression. It is not your responsibility to make sure nobody gets offended by your honest self-expression, but to ensure that you express yourself in accordance to your intuition. Mistakes. Mistakes need to be allowed to be made in order to grow and regain balance. It is only out of evaluation that mistakes should not have happened. Our definite mind sees the absolute in isolation. It is hard for it to take all the steps into the consideration. In life, species have evolved and died out. That doesn't need to mean that the dinosaurs were a mistake. They just served for a limited time span their purpose, and now they are giving way to something new. So let's learn to see the past as something that was necessary to the evolution of what is now, rather than a mistake that could have been avoided. Oftentimes, the greatest obstacles or fears or challenges hold the greatest potential for serving others. Because you've gained depth of understanding that you don't have when it already comes natural to you. Plus, you develop an intrinsic excitement about keeping, to integrate that in your life, and this enthusiasm coupled with the story that you have of overcoming that, plus depth of experience from having gone through the trial and error, is magnetic for people. Finding your true passion. Not everybody is equally passionate about things. Extroverts, I believe to have heard, also tend to have a different nervous system under the aspect of excitability. So not everybody is meant to become a captivating motivational speaker. But everybody can find something that he or she is passionate about in the sense that it brings fulfillment for you and is magnetic and attractive to the others who hears your message. But I believe that it is not done in a weekend workshop. This is the truth. This doesn't mean that you cannot uncover your passion here and now. It is within you. It is possible. But oftentimes, it takes a time of trial and error. First, you need to distinguish and find out what attracts you and why. Mostly, it is former egoic motivations that can be transformed now into motivations for others. The true passion bridges the fulfillment of your own needs with service to others and seeing in them change that truly touches you and fills you up. Oftentimes it is things that you have struggled with yourself. Other topics: human condition, our specific gifts that come with challenges and limitations. Following the heart and intuition. Life has equipped us with certain qualities that, when we live out, lead to experience joy and fulfillment, while simultaneously are being experienced as easeful as play and not as work. There might be ideas conflicting with that, one we think we should do or we think what others expect us to do, but our heart knows what's right for us. So developing the internal reference in addition to external reference is key. Following the heart means to find out what attracts you and how to follow that. Intuition is life experience of the past that forms an unconsciously processed but consciously felt feeling component. Every capacity comes with a limitation, like a bat which comparatively has inferior eyesight but is superior hearing, or a cheetah which comparatively has superior velocity but inferior endurance. So do we have comparatively a superior imagination and abstraction ability, but inferior attunement to life. In the same way as dogs can hear sounds from a dog whistle that we cannot perceive, all animals have a sixth sense and instinct about what to do and where to go that most of us humans cannot perceive. It is known that after the tsunami in Thailand, when I wrote that was already a few years ago, so that was even a few more years back, but you can Google that when that happened, 2007 or something. There were found a lot of human bodies, but little to no dead dogs or other animals. Those animals somehow received an intuition or instinct to go into higher regions. The same goes for wildfires. Animals receive some instinct that they need to leave. Or salmons that travel thousands of kilometers from the place where they forage for food in the ocean to the place where they hatch from their eggs. How do they know the direction? They have some internal knowing. And so do we. Life is guiding us. But we need to find a way to sharpen our perceptive capacities to receive the voice of the heart that speaks through us and to us with our intuition. And for that we need to learn how to feel. When we shut off our emotions, we shut off all the other feelings as well. And that means when we run away from our emotion, we lose the capacity to feel at all. We do not only want to not feel emotions, also other feelings like body sensations or our intuition can also not be felt, because all of those three are called feelings because we can feel them. And if we run away from emotions, for example, or if we shut off our bodily sensations with strong medication, we cannot perceive our intuition as well, which is unfortunate because this is the voice of life that speaks to us through our heart and guides us to where we need to be. But humans have the capacity for this internal knowing about what to do and where to go as well. It doesn't need to be developed, it is already built in. It is only that we have a hard time perceiving this inner guidance because it is a feeling. And because we collectively are cut off from our feelings, we don't perceive this inner voice. The difference to the animal is the following. While they just act upon it without having a choice, it is called instinct. We as humans, we have the capacity to not follow this natural inclination. We have the power of choice. That's why for humans it is called intuition. It is a suggestion, not more. We can follow it or we don't. Unlike animals who just act out on their instincts, we have a choice. That's the difference between instinct and intuition, between animal and the human animal. What we can draw from this for our lives is the following. This instinct to leave the natural habitat that the animal has been living in for years was not making sense logically. There was no apparent reason for it. There was just this knowing, this instinct. And the animal followed that. When we receive an intuitive impulse, which by the way is different from an instinctual impulse, we have to differentiate here between what feels good or what we feel inclined to and what truly feels right. Just because you're itching in your crotch and you would like to act that out doesn't mean that you need to act this out. But acting on your intuition is something different. something that feels right, or something that just feels good. Instinct, instinctual impulse, and intuitive impulse are separate. Lesson: developing trust to follow the inner guidance even when there is no logical reason for it, or even harder, to follow even when there are logical reasons against it. Animals are in alignment with life. They do not have this logical capacity, so they are supported by life in continuing to live on. Some humans are little in alignment with life, so they constantly encounter events that seem against them. Others are more in alignment with life, and they seem to encounter constantly events that seem to supporting them, and that is not because they're lucky. It's because they're aligned. Lesson: someone who is in alignment with life is supported by life through fortunate events and an inner guidance. Someone who is out of alignment with life is taught by life and brought back into alignment with life through unfortunate hard times, suffering, illnesses, etc., being brought to their knees and as an aid in the process of reevaluating whether their way of life is the right one. Meaning, if you don't get it, life's gonna slap you across your face. If you don't get the subtle lessons, you're going to be put with your face in the dirt and have as much pain as it needs for you to be broken to finally get the lesson. And some people never get it, and they die, and they unfortunately never get it. But it doesn't have to be so for you. And if you don't know what it means, consult with somebody like me who can translate you what life is wanting to tell you with the things that happen to you, right? In healing work, we also need to be guided by the heart. We need to feel out which particular teachings and exercises attract us, in being guided by the feeling and intuition towards which topics need to be looked at. Healing work. The aim of all psychotherapy is deconditioning work. Every client of a psychotherapist seeks improved happiness. We have to understand that happiness, as contentment with what is the natural state, often clouded with overlayering conditioning. So every approach to psychotherapy is either to resolve the conditioning or to remember the patient of that experience of that natural state. Bringing about the emotion of joy, in that sense of adding happiness onto the state of existence to the person, is a futile approach. Becoming an adult. Emotional maturity does not necessarily correspond in timely manner with physiological adulthood. Childish mental emotional functioning keeps us in bondage. So the goal is to become a mature adult, because in childhood, the phase of total openness, vulnerability, dependence, and imprintability, malleability, our psycho-emotional markup is formed. Here, the child and the mature adult emerges. The childish adult is fear-driven and clings and chases out of the perceived scarcity in order to heal the old emotional wounds from the childhood. He remains an adult child. The mature adult rather behaves like the playful child, very free and playing because he realizes that he is safe. In that way, the child matures through the state of worry and abiding fearfulness just in order to go full circle and end up playing carefree again, but with the depth of experience. Mental chatter is often due to physical unrest. Physical stress brings the entire system into a state of alertness. Sensation as well as thoughts are experienced as more intense. We are more itchy in order to increase the chance of noticing those sensations and learning from them. So also thoughts are spawned more often. A lot of mental noise is due to physical stress. Thoughts are pointers. Oftentimes they point towards something that we need to be paying attention to, and if our attention is not flowing there because of various reasons, oftentimes, in the same way as pain calls for our attention, thoughts call for our attention. And if it's not physical pain, sometimes it is emotional pain. And then we need to learn how to decode those thoughts and really find out, because oftentimes those thoughts, even though they are verbal, they are not always literal. Meaning, the thoughts that you perceive and the words that these thoughts contain, meaning the way that you perceive those thoughts and the words that those thoughts contain, do not always literally indicate the meaning. Meaning, We gotta find out what's really behind those thoughts. And I don't know who else is doing that type of work. I mean, in my opinion, we should have like a whole lot of elders in communities advising people on that. And we'll surely build this in the future, but for now, I don't really see this happening. So all I can tell you is like book a call if you want to, if you want to get advice on that. So all I can tell you is like book a call with me if you want to get advice on that, because I don't know what else to do. I don't know where else to really send you. I haven't really found many other people who can do this type of work. In that way, the child matures through the state of worry and abiding fearfulness just in order to go full circle and end up playing carefree again, but with the depth of experience. Mental chatter is often due to physical unrest. A thought is there as a symbol. If it is followed, it leads to an emotion. Thoughts are like wind, an energy movement. They are movement towards an energy deficit attempting to fill a hole. It brings attention to the hole. Where there's an insecurity or trauma or something in our etc. When there's an insecurity or a trauma etc. in our psyche, thoughts arise to raise awareness, to attempt to cure the trauma. Everything that happens in the psyche aids the healing process and getting us back into balance or homeostasis. The unrest mentally will come to, how do we say this? How do you pronounce homeostasis? Because I'm a pro and I educate myself.
Homeostasis.
Let's take a look here. Homeostasis.
Homeostasis.
Homeostasis. Exactly. That's how we pronounce it. Alright, cool. Bring us back into homeostasis. Okay, everything that happens in the psyche aids the healing process and getting us back into balance or homeostasis. The unrest mentally will come to a natural end once the internal conflicts are resolved. And when your mind's still loud, that means there are some things that it's desperately calling for your attention, and most of the things you already know what they are. Do not tell me that you don't know what you should fix, but haven't yet. And I'm not accusing you of anything. Usually people don't fix their problems because they currently don't have the energy, which may be a very valid excuse. Because change takes time and it does take many years. You can't fix all of the problems all at once. But there is an inner process that you can go through by yourself to say is like, okay, what do I really need to fix? What can I prioritize right now? And how can I find peace in saying I can deal with that for another year and I postpone that to the next year? Not out of fear, not because I don't want to deal with it emotionally, but I really allocate my resources to something else currently. And but most people don't do that. Most people just don't address these things at all. And then you deserve to suffer, right? And then you really deserve to suffer because they call for your attention and it causes suffering if you don't turn your eyes to the things that your attention needs to be pointed at for you to live a life in balance. This unrest mentally will come to a natural end once internal conflicts are resolved. This resolution requires non-resistance to the process internally, as well as acting in congruence with the realization on the external. Most thoughts arise out of fear. In being confronted with something seemingly out of our control, thoughts arise in order to attempt to control or anticipate. In realizing that life works out without the need for control, that it controls us, the fear vanishes and a big proportion of the thoughts come to a halt. Many thoughts arise out of wanting to recorrect the past. When I have insecurities about my masculinity, I reject my femininity. Also, when I have insecurities about masculinity and being a real man, I am harsh towards others who display weakness. Don't be a pussy, etc. Plus, you try to artificially compensate for what you naturally lack. Healing work often needs a superior flavor, replacing unhealthy patterns with healthy ones that attract one more than the unhealthy ones. Depression due to lack of expression. Which parents do my habits and patterns come from? Most of what we do in adult life is only a repetition of what we modeled from our parents or repetition of childhood patterns that were used by us to receive love. When you don't have the feeling that you can just be as you are as a child, your life becomes a striving for changing yourself. Childhood. What emotions were allowed and which ones were not allowed? Which were encouraged and which were expected to be suppressed? Balance. There are relief and release patterns. Every human has a certain warning sign of imbalance that can be highly personal. They can be thoughts, feelings, etc. Coping is a means of avoiding. Often unhappiness as well as mental chatter arise because of physical unrest in the system. The belief system makes us not listen to our bodies, decide against our intuition, or not being able to perceive the voice of the body at all. Everything that the body and the psyche does is aimed at restoring balance in the system. So oftentimes we recreate traumatic experiences in order to re-experience them so that they can be released. The body and psyche are healing all the same, all the time. It is on to us to get out of our own way so that the natural healing process can happen. How do I make my life work? There's rest, play, and work. Some things we just have to do, and this can be called work. But every sensible man makes a living in playing. He basically becomes so good at playing that he makes a living in that. And the only reason why we would resist work is because we seek happiness overall and resist the unfulfilling aspects of work. But in finding fulfillment in the play that ensures the livelihood, work is not resisted. Relationship. People are not there to meet my needs. Before any interaction, I make sure that I know that most people are acting out their conditioning and that I expect to be challenged by it. They treat me the way they learned it. This might, although, not be the way that I wanted. Emotions. Feelings comprise of everything we can feel. This can be sensations, emotions, and intuition. Topics on the having overcome it part. Exactly. This is great. Alright, so now we take a little rest and then we start from the very beginning once again.